It's getting close to that time. 49ers, Bengals, keys to victory. What the 49ers have to do to beat the Bengals in week 8, and who's even going to be the quarterback. Brock Purdy in concussion protocol. Is this the beginning of the Sam Darnold era? And how about Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilks talking about what happened in the loss last week? All that and more. A lot to come right here. Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks to everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, where do we start? Let's start with the quarterbacks. We got to, because yesterday, 24 hours ago, it looked like, man, there's a really good chance that Sam Darnold was going to start at quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals. And there was a, for those of you who are living under a rock, Brock Purdy, concussion protocol. There's a lot of steps to concussion protocol. Don't know exactly what all of those are, but he's in that protocol, apparently progressing through it. But according to Adam Schefter, Brock Purdy unlikely to play. This was October 25th, Wednesday, yesterday, recording this now Thursday afternoon. And Brock Purdy already on the practice field. So a limited practice today. He was on the field doing some things. I don't know if that's part of the protocol where, okay, you get through, make some throws, go through warmups, go through the first part of practice, and then you get tested again and see where you're at there. I don't know if that's part of concussion protocol. I would imagine you have to get through a practice first, and there's only, one more real practice to go on Friday, right, Croc, before this thing gets going. So as of right now, it's probably 60-40 at least that it's going to be Sam Darnold, it looks like.
You think so? It feels like it might be Brock Purdy. I think the interesting thing here is, what do they do for their concussion protocol testing? I know when I was with the New York Jets, the one thing they did was during OTAs or training camp, or it was before the season, they had us take this test on the screen where you kind of sit in there by yourself, and it has all kind of like shapes and different things, and they'll show you a bunch of different ones, and then they go back through and ask you which ones you saw. Like, did you see this? And you click a yes or a no, and they kind of go through that whole thing. Whatever you score on that needs to be similar to what you score if you get concussed and to get out of concussion protocol, you take that test again. It has to be very similar. So I don't know what the 49ers protocol is. Is it just, oh, my eyes aren't hurting when I look in the lights, or, I don't have any headaches, So I don't know exactly what the 49ers do, but it was encouraging to see Brock Purdy on the field practicing, limited participant, but still throwing the football around.
And it's not as simple as something like Christian McCaffrey's oblique, where you're like, you can tough guy your way through it. Purdy there has to be an independent neurologist sign off on it, and he's got to go through tests and pass tests. So it's a little bit different than him saying, I'm going to tough it out. I'm fine. I can go play. And so that's a short week too. That's one less day to be able to go through this and pass the concussion protocol. And it has been done where a player gets hurt and the very next week he's on the field going through concussion protocol. For quarterbacks, that tweet from Schefter said that no player had done it. I think he maybe meant quarterbacks, because Kenny Pickett last year in 2022 was the last quarterback to go into concussion protocol and then play the very following week. The fact that it's his first time in concussion protocol, at least in the NFL for Brock Purdy, I think is pretty important too. So that makes it a little bit easier to get through it, probably. And obviously you want him to be healthy, and you don't want him to do more damage to himself. And so you have to be really smart about this. And it's not as easy as looking at a broken bone or looking at an MRI either for concussions. So this might be it. This might be the Sam Darnold era, Croc. We'll find out little bit later this week, if Brock Purdy's cleared and has a full practice on Friday, we'll know the answer there. And at some point, if for most of the practices this week, if not all of the real practice sessions this week, if Sam Darnold is running with the ones, then it's going to make it even more difficult for Brock Purdy, right? Because all of a sudden you're like cleared on Saturday and you didn't practice all week, and you're just going to jump in. And I mean, you're in meetings, you know the game plan, I'm sure, but so it gets a little bit dicey there for Brock Purdy, and that's why it's hard to come back from that concussion protocol, be ready to play as a quarterback in 1 week. What is your expectation for Sam Darnold if he does end up playing, Croc?
Well, first I want to start with Brock Purdy, and we talk about his expectations, you know, if he's able to play or not play. But, you know, does he need reps? Does he not need reps? Obviously, you want those reps. You want those practice reps to kind of prepare for a team. You want to be part of the game plan and everything that they're installing. But we did see him get thrust into a situation in the middle of a game, or in the first quarter, a game that he did not get many reps for, playing against the Miami Dolphins, big game at home for the 49ers a year ago. And I think he performed well with just kind of being thrust into that. So I think now with his experience and, you know, his knowledge of the system, what Kyle Shanahan wants, if they do have to do something on the fly where he is playing in this kind of last minute, I think they'll be able to adjust well. Now, as far as Sam Darnold goes and kind of what my expectations are for him, they haven't changed. I do think he's someone that has an immense amount of talent. He's able to make all the throws, but there's something there that's kind of missing at times with his processing, which has been very inconsistent. It has made him extremely turnover prone. I know there will be some people that say, well, you know, look at the teams he was on, and New York Jets, they weren't great, and the Panthers weren't great. So this would be the best situation he's been in, which is true. But I just can't have high expectations for someone who was able to sign as like a $3 million free agent, you know, to be a backup quarterback. I think he has the pieces around him to kind of ease him into this situation, being able to get the ball to Brandon Ayuk, being able to get the ball to Kittle, and it looks like Juwan Jennings now, who was targeted 9 times in the last game. And you also have Christian McCaffrey. But ultimately, after the last 2 losses, I feel like it's going to take a little bit more from the offense to really kind of be able to win a football game, even in Cincinnati. So a little worried if Sam Darnold has to take over and really be the guy to will you to a victory.
And Sam Darnold, it's great when you look good in shorts, right? And that's what got him drafted high. And he looked good in the summer and you know, in training camp. But seeing him play well in games and not be a turnover machine is something I'm still gonna have to see with my own eyes on an NFL Sunday, right? So that's going to be a big key for Sam Darnold if he does play. And you know, we've seen some turnover interception tendencies from some 49ers quarterbacks recently, and he over his NFL career has put the ball in harm's way as much or more than just about anybody. Paney64 says, what are your thoughts on what Sam Darnold would have to do to displace Purdy going forward? I don't want that, but could Purdy get Wally pipped like he gave the Wally Pipp treatment to 2 other quarterbacks before him? Could this be just a succession of Wally Pipps for the 49ers and never getting to a Lou Gehrig?
I think that Brock Purdy has done enough to where he's just the guy. So I don't know if there's anything that Sam Darnold can do outside of maybe push up his trade value, right? Like if he goes and he balls out and it looks amazing and there's a team out there that might need a quarterback mid-season, then maybe he's available and he helps from that standpoint. But as far as, you know, him moving forward with the 49ers, I think he's just the backup. And I'm not sure there's anything he can do, especially since he'll only have 1 crack at it that can displace Brock Purdy. Now, if Brock Purdy was going to be out 4 weeks, and all of a sudden Sam Darnold just hits this crazy stride and he's clicking and he's firing on all cylinders, then I think maybe there's a conversation, and he would still have to like blow you away. I'm talking about throw for 350, 4 touchdowns. You're winning every game. Like he's running for another 30 yards. Like it would just have to be so mind blowing to even start a conversation. I don't see something like that happening.
Your boy Greg says, this is all coming full circle. Jimmy coming back to San Francisco on Tuesday morning.
Don't listen to Greg. Greg has been texting me and calling me, and he was the one though that talked about before the game, Kirk Cousins, he's going to be coming back with the 49ers on that flight. I'm starting to think that Greg has something against Brock Purdy. So we're going to have to bring him on to see exactly what that is.
What a hater. He does say Crocky Garop, Croctober. Croc Purdy, Crocky Montana.
He put my highlights of me throwing, because I go, and everybody knows I go mess around with Greg, and I kind of learn some of the things with quarterbacks and try to figure out like what's difficult, what's hard to do. I have a funky throwing motion, but even just like doing those things, it gives you a different level of respect for quarterbacks and the process and just what it goes into throwing an accurate throw, which some people think, oh, just throw a pass and it's accurate. Like, nah, like, with your front shoulder and you coil up this way, then your front step, you can't overstride, and then your arm has to follow through. It can't be, there's all these different things that go into it that whenever I go out there and mess around with my buddy, it makes me appreciate the position even more.
Well, look, everybody go see Greg Pinelli if you need to get, if you need a throwing coach, because if you make Croc look that good, then, Greg's got some talent at Pinelli Passing Academy. All right.
Hey, he made Josh Allen look great, and we see what Josh Allen has looked like lately. He needs to get back with Greg Pinelli.
Next, Kyle Shanahan, did he throw Steve Wilks under the bus? Steve Wilks comments about the play call as it is for the 2023 season, the big touchdown before halftime against the Minnesota Vikings last week. And of course, our keys to victory, what the 49ers have to do to beat the Bengals Sunday next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Taking a look at this line, the Brock Purdy concussion protocol has changed the line quite a bit. It went down to 3.5, I think, and then now it's back up to 4 because Brock did make an appearance. So you're getting a couple extra points if it goes from Brock to Sam Darnold. How big of a difference does it make if Sam Darnold is starting in the final score here? And so right now, 4 points, according to FanDuel, is the line. 49ers still favored, even if Sam Darnold plays right now, by 4 against the Cincinnati Bengals. You can find that, any spreads for the football season, college or pro, player props, over-unders, build your own parlays, such a wide ranging of betting options at FanDuel. And of course, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on that first $5 bet at FanDuel. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon for $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay. I was a little surprised, Croc, and I was trying to think back. Was there ever a time that Kyle Shanahan so bluntly and publicly threw one of his coaches under the bus? Now, it's not a big deal. These guys are big boys. Steve Wilks knows he screwed up. We all knew that was kind of a screwed up play call. Mostly, I think you have some thoughts on that one. And I always love to hear the former DB's thoughts on plays like this. And if you guys don't remember the play call, it was 17 seconds left in the first half. And he goes cover 0 blitz. Ball goes off of Charvarius Ward's chest, and Jordan Addison pulls it away, ends up scoring a touchdown right before the half. Could have been the difference in the ball game, right? And then Steve Wilks today. I didn't see the presser with Steve Wilks today. What did Steve Wilks say about that play call, Croc?
He essentially said that he takes full blame for the play call, could have called something better to put he believes he has good football players, but he needs to put them in better positions to succeed.
Was it like a hostage situation? Was he like blinking in Morse code when he was saying that? Do you think he fully believes that, Croc, or was this just getting maybe getting a little bit of a shakedown from Kyle Shanahan, who clearly did not like that play call?
I kept seeing him look over to the left, like Kyle Shanahan was standing there. Like, do you remember? Was it Happy Gilmore? And was it Ben Stiller? He was there. Remember, he was chastising the grandma.
Oh, right.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. That's not.
And like
yeah, Happy Gilmore. Yes.
Yeah, that was Happy Gilmore. So Adam Sandler being there with his grandma, and Ben Stiller would be behind and be like, right, like you better not say what's really going on here. Kyle is definitely doing a little bit of that. Listen, I understand it wasn't a great play call. But at the end of the day, and I said this after the game, if his thoughts were this quarterback has had too much time, he's kind of picking this apart. Okay, I see that. But let's put a little pressure on him, force him to throw an errant pass, and maybe one of my guys will be in position to make a play. If that was his thought process, which I don't know. I don't know if it wasn't. I don't know what he was trying to do. I would have never called that. But if that was, the ball hit his guy in the chest. So when he said, I got to put my guys in better position, Wilks, the play call, not great, but I don't know what else you could have done to put your guy in position. If it was force a bad throw to get a ball to hit a guy in the chest, that's exactly what happened. And your highest paid defensive back, and I always talk about 49ers, they don't put a whole lot of resources into the secondary like I think they should. But your highest paid defensive back had a ball hit him in the chest, and the small, tiny receiver, skinny guy, no muscles, took the ball away from you. So Kyle wants to throw Wilks under the bus and talk about this play. And then I hear the 49er faithful, and they're kind of throwing the defense under the bus and Wilks under the bus. Wilks, what top 5 to number 1 defense, number 2 defense in the NFL through the first 5 weeks? And it's like, do we just forget that the defense has played very well? In the last 2 games, when your offense gives you 17 points against the Watson and Chubless Browns, 17 points, you lose. And then 17 points against the Minnesota Vikings. But we're going to throw the defense under the bus who gave up 22 points. They're acting like 22 points. I watched the Miami Dolphins against the Buffalo Bills. Miami Dolphins, good team, right? One of the better teams in the NFL. They gave up 48 points. Like, if you want to be critical of a defensive coordinator when they give up 48 points, 40 points, 35 points, I get it. 22 points, you are still in the game. You have an opportunity to win. I understand time of the possession. I understand third down, all that. But at the end of the day, they had 22 points. And when the 49ers needed stops, remember, they only gave up 6 points in the second half. When they needed some stops to give the offense an opportunity to score, they didn't do it. In a league that is catered towards offense, everything about this league, the way they call, the way the plays are, everything's so spread out. It's so wide open. You get flags. You can't even breathe on a receiver. You can't hit them too hard or throw a flag. Everything is catered towards the offense being able to score points, and you couldn't do it. So stop throwing Wilks under the bus and for his defense in one game this year, giving up 22 points. And how about talking about the offense, which was really the issue, that fumbled in the red zone, that missed a field goal, and that threw 2 interceptions in plus territory to try to close the game out. Let's talk about them. Stop talking about Wilks and 22 points.
I understand the idea of scouting the results is what's happening here, because if he does pick off that pass and if he houses it the other way, right, then you're praising him. It's like, what a gutsy call, right? So it is important, process over results, but I agree that call at that time was not good. And Kyle Shanahan said something really interesting in his press conference when he was talking about that play call. And he said something similar to what I said about some Kyle Shanahan calls in the past, where it's like, it's not like that call doesn't belong in the playbook. It's just that time that it was called, this is not the time to call that play, right? And, you know, this goes back to our conversations about, is Kyle Shanahan getting his quarterbacks hurt, right? Is week 2, a 2nd and 8 the right time to run your quarterback up the middle, right? That play call should be in the playbook. Is that the right time to call it? Allowing your backup tight end one-on-one to block the best speed rusher in the NFL that season. You know, is that a better call against a different team? Is it a better call at a different time? Not that call doesn't exist in the NFL and shouldn't exist in the NFL. So when it's called, it is huge there. 17 seconds. You got to know the time. You got to know the situation that you're in. And so I do think that was a really bad play call. And I get what you're saying about the offense too, but Croc, I would throw it back the other way and say, how the heck is the offense supposed to score if they can't get the ball back because the defense can't get on the field? One punt, Croc, they forced one punt in the entire game. How can you score if the other team has the ball and is driving down the field? Now, some of those points were—
how many times did the 49ers punt?
Downs, and they kicked field goals instead.
How many times did the 49ers punt?
They should have punted more times because they should have had the ball more times.
How many times did they punt though, Peacock?
I have no idea. One time, I think.
One time. Okay. Right. So they punted once, you punted once. And somehow this team has more points. So I don't know.
Well, how many drives did each team have? How about that? Let's count that.
Probably had the same amount of drives, I assume.
How about time of possession?
Time of possession favored Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which is why they have more points. More points than your 17.
Because the 49ers offense couldn't get the ball back. So this is, we talked about
this. Does the defense have to be perfect every game? I mean, like, is it like, okay, if the defense, because I thought we turned the page to where the offense is the one where it's like, all right, the offense is better than the defense. That's what we've been saying. So if we're going into these games now thinking the offense is better than the defense, and the defense has a little bit of a down game, or a lot of it, however you want to look at it, they gave up a bunch of yards or whatever, but you can't give up 22 points and okay, we lost time of possession. Like, so this goes back to another thing, and maybe it could be the whole Brock Purdy and the concussion thing. Does it have to be the perfect situation for this offense to look like itself without being able to just make plays to get you to will you to a win? Does the defense have to like put you in the most ideal situation every single week? Because that's very unfair for a defense to have to go through that. Like every week, if it's like, man, if we're not on our A game, if we're giving up a higher percentage of third downs than we typically do, if we lose the ball control because you can't run the ball, because you're averaging 3.1 yards per carry. So now it's on us. Like, you can't figure out another way to try to score. And if so, then do we throw the defensive coordinator under the bus who only gave up 22 points? Like, I just think that's a little ridiculous. And especially when you're looking at everybody, I don't care if Deebo Samuel didn't play, you still got CMC, you still got Brandon Ayuk, you still got George Kittle, Juwan Jennings had 9 targets. Like, you still got guys. Like, this can't be, and I'm putting this on the offense.
75% third downs.
I don't care about the sacks. I don't care about none of that. They had 22 points. Can you score? I don't care about none of that. Ideally, I do. Ideally, you want more sacks, you want more pressure, you want all that. I understand. Ideally, Bosa, can you get to the quarterback? We just traded for Gregory. Can you Hargraves pay you $84 million? Can you get? Ideally, yes, we want all those things to be true, but it's not going to happen every game. So in the event that it doesn't happen, in the event that the defense isn't amazing and holding the team to 10 points, in the event that the defense doesn't make every play that you need them to make, can the offense score more than 17 points? And so far, the answer is no. And if you go back, you look at games, even like Dallas Cowboys, right? Because I was listening to Chris Sims, and he was like, well, the 49ers kind of had the ball bouncing their way. You had the early fumble. You had the early interception. You had all these things that help. And it just sounds like a lot of the defense setting you up. When you, at the end of the day, like when it comes to winning this Super Bowl, like everybody wants to win, you're going to have to go toe-to-toe with some big dogs from the AFC. So if Matt Mahomes or somebody on the other side and your quarterback has to outduel them, are you saying you can't do that because Brock Purdy's our quarterback? Because then now we have a whole different conversation.
We're not asking for the best defense performance ever on Monday night. We're asking for better than 75% third down completion rate for the offense you're playing against. And I don't think you would argue
points, Peacock.
You think the defense plays better than the offense?
I don't think the offense helped the defense when the defense didn't have their A game.
I think the defense hurt the offense more than the offense hurt the defense, but they all work together too. And that was kind of my point earlier, is that if you can't stop the run, you got to focus on the run. Well, now you got to bring pressure, and now your DBs are hung out to dry a little bit. Well, now you're not getting off the field. Well, now the offense doesn't get the ball as much. Well, now the offense is not scoring as much. Now the defense is back on the field again, and it just all works together. And so you need one thing to click, and it helps the next thing click, and it helps the next thing click. And the 49ers weren't clicking. So I don't think you can blame it all on one thing or the other, but I think it's fair to say that was a bad call, and it hurt the 49ers. It's just like you could say, hey, Christian McCaffrey, don't fumble inside the 10-yard line. That hurt the 49ers, right? So I think those things are all fair and probably all accurate at the same time.
I know one thing.
Or more than 22.
First drive of the game.
Hey, give up less than 20 49ers defense. How about that?
First drive of the game, Ward got an interception, and the 49ers came away with 0 points.
0.
Like, we're setting you up. That happened last week. Didn't Fred Warner get a pick, ran it back to other team's territory, and then you get 0 points out of it? Like, at what point, like, defense, you're going to run into some big dogs in the postseason, quarterbacks, where your defense is going to have a hard time getting off the field, where your defense is going to have a hard time getting stops, where they might have a higher percentage of third down conversions. Can your offense keep up in that scenario? You don't think that the Eagles are going to try to play ball control in there? They're not going to run with Hurts and convert. And what if they put up 30 points? Because they can do that. They put up 30-something versus the Vikings. So if they score 35 points, you just can't win? Like it's going to be needed. That's going to be needed to beat the big dogs. So if you're telling me that in order for the 49ers to win it all, they're going to have to really play lights out defense because the offense can't do it, then that's a totally different issue.
You got to realize we were talking about Brock 30 before. Now he's Brock Purdy, and he threw 2 interceptions after that concussion, which probably didn't help things either. So that's maybe when you do need the defense to go win the game for you if your quarterback is seen double out there. Jokes aside, hope Brock Purdy is better. We got to move on to some keys to victory next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by PrizePicks. You can have so much fun, and guess what? You can win money as well with PrizePicks this season. PrizePicks daily fantasy made easy, and up to 25 times your money is what we're talking about here. And all you do is you select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats at PrizePicks, and then if you hit on all of those, and the more players you pick, the more you stack it together, and the more money you can make. You can turn $10 into $250 at PrizePicks in just a few snaps. And something PrizePicks is doing that nobody else is. And by the way, I think Christian McCaffrey's big week for him. You might want to pick the more than on his rushing yards this week at PrizePicks. The PrizePicks reboot policy means your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for NFL games, college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who gets hurt in the first half, does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Just go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or just download the app and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. When you sit down to watch a football game, what's the first thing you think of? To be honest with you, the first thing I think of is food. The first thing I think of most days is food. And you can get that taken care of instantly just about with DoorDash. Get your favorite restaurants, get the groceries you need. You can get, you ever have your favorite pizza spot? We talked about this earlier this week, man. My favorite spot, Pizza Hacker, they don't deliver. So guess what? Now they do because of DoorDash. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers. Maybe you just need some buns. You got the burgers at home. You're ready to make your own spread. DoorDash can help you out, and our listeners get 50% off, up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Subject to change, terms apply. Don't forget, use code LOCKED23 at DoorDash for 50% off, up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. All right, Croc. What does Steve Wilks have to do to not screw up so bad that the 49ers lose to the Bengals on Sunday?
I think he would ideally like to get a little bit more pressure from Nick Bosa and be able to rush before. I don't think the 49ers have the greatest guys on the back end. So you really need to rely on the guys that you've invested the most money in that area and getting pressure and being able to play coverage behind it, ideally.
It's one thing. I kind of joked there about Steve Wilks and what he has to do to not screw up. One of the things I don't like about the way Kyle talked about it earlier on in the week is that he kind of signaled to the fan base, oh, Steve Wilks screwed up. Guess what? That new defensive coordinator, he screwed up, and the fan base is going to take Kyle's lead on that, and you're going to start seeing more heat and just more focus on Steve Wilks. Is he a bad defensive coordinator? And it's not a great vibe, and really all it does, it's kind of PR 101. That's why there's so much coach speak in the NFL, and a lot of times you appreciate Kyle and John and how forthcoming they are a lot of times, but that's why there's coach speak in the NFL, and you never want to throw your teammates under the bus. Like, say if you're a quarterback, you take the whole blame. If you're the head coach, you never want to throw your coaches or your players under the bus. You want to take the blame. We'll get it fixed, whatever. And so it just makes your job a little bit harder. It's going to make Steve Wilks' job a little bit harder because now fans have heard Kyle say that, and like now you're going to be looking for it. Oh, did Wilks screw up this call? Did Wilks screw up this call? Is he blitzing too much? Is this that? And it just kind of snowballs. So and unfortunately, and I'm kind of with you, Croc. I was trying to play devil's advocate with you there, and I do believe that the defense did not help out the offense at all last week, but I don't like the idea of everyone's just going to pile on Steve Wilks now, and then there's a scapegoat built in for the 49ers with their new defense coordinator if things don't quite work out this year.
Right. And I think, again, through 5 weeks, and even some in the Browns game. I think you'd say that, man, Wilks has done an exceptional job. And wow, everything just keeps going great for the 49ers and finding these coordinators and getting guys in, and they're guys in position to win. When you were 5-0 and giving up the least amount of points per game in the NFL, everything was great with them. And then you have a 2-game skid, and one of the 2 games, your defense definitely didn't bring their A game. Now all of a sudden he's the reason, and I think that's just wrong. Because defense is just so hard. Like, I thought just in general, it's going to be extremely difficult to get the same results defensively, number 1 team or number 1 defense or number 2 defense every year for the last 4 or 5 years, right? And just keep that going. Like, at some point, they might take a step back. And through 5 games, it looked like, man, it's just the same old 49ers terrific defense that's making plays and playing good defense and doing all that. And then you have one game where it's a little off, and all of a sudden it's like, man, get rid of this guy and use him as a scapegoat. Now, I think that's a little kind of irresponsible of Kyle Shanahan to kind of, especially, kind of throw out one play, before the half, which again, it wasn't, I would have never called a 0 blitz with that much time left, no timeouts where they were on the field. I would have never done that. But to kind of throw it on like, well, that's the reason we lost, I think it's kind of messed up. Your head coach, the head man. You're supposed to take down the chin. Yeah,
and he didn't necessarily say that's the reason they lost, but he was asked about that call and he was very forthright about it, and I appreciate that. It's not like he was blaming it on him, but what I'm saying too, and I've seen some pushback from some folks about that. It's like, oh, well, he's just telling the truth. It's like, yeah, that's why coaches don't tell the truth, because it just leads to other things, and you just don't do that as a head coach in the NFL. So I didn't love that, but getting home with 4. I mean, that's huge, Croc. And I see in the chat, we'll talk more about the trade deadline on another date, probably Monday evening when we record before that Tuesday deadline. We'll get a little bit deeper into the trade deadline stuff, because we've got a lot of other stuff we got to talk about. Keep seeing Donnell Hunter and these big name pass rushers. You got Bosa. You just got Gregory. You got a 2nd-round pick from last year. You signed Cleveland Farrell, so Drake Jackson. You've got enough dudes. The 49ers have plenty of dudes up front. Javon Hargrave to pressure opposing quarterbacks, only sending 4. I don't think they need to make a huge move at the defensive end spot. These guys that are there just have to be better. I don't know, if it's a scheme thing, more stunts, more twists, whatever it is, but they should be able to get home 4. They don't need to add another stud defensive end to be a good defense right now.
And typically they would. I think Kirk Cousins, I saw a stat out there, he got the ball out quicker than any quarterback that they faced this year. So when we start talking about the 0 sacks, I think that might have had some to do with it.
There were plays where, going back and watching, and there were plays where Bosa's admitted that the holdout messed him up a little bit, and he's still figuring things out. And there were plays where he was close, and Kirk did a good job of getting rid of the ball. So, the other guys play too. It's not always you did great, you did bad. Sometimes the other team has something to say about the outcome of a football game.
And Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback, good veteran quarterback. I saw someone earlier say you can't get smoked by backups. Their guys weren't backups. I mean, they're missing their guy, right? Justin Jefferson, which is why I thought it'd be easier. But like, Addison's a 1st-round pick. He's a rookie 1st-round pick.
Made some plays.
He's a very talented kid. Like, that's a starter. Osborne has been starting and playing for them since like the Diggs days. Like, number 17, he played well. Like, he's been a guy out there. Madison's their starting running back all year long. They just kind of brought in Akers. Like, Hawkinson, they traded for him last year. Like, he's a guy at tight end. There was a time where people were saying he was kind of, hey man, this guy's going to be better than George Kittle. And even now, like, he's playing very well. He's leading their team right now outside of Justin Jefferson. So like, these weren't backups on their team outside of just not having Justin Jefferson. These are guys that played a lot and have done very well. They're losing games. I know we look at their record. The Vikings, every game they've lost is by 1 score. Like, it just was flipped last year. So their record looked a lot different.
Right. And getting home with 4 is so beneficial when you're going against Joe Burrow. Make him get the ball out early, and you can't let – we saw Jordan Addison. Well, you can't let Jamar Chase do that. You can't let Jamar Chase lose in the back end against the 49ers. So getting to Burrow is the biggest key of this entire game. On the other side of the ball, obviously protecting your quarterbacks is huge, especially if Brock Purdy's going to play coming off of concussion protocol. You don't want to get him hit And turnovers, man. You can't, like, Brock can't throw the ball to the other team if he's playing. Sam Darnold's dogged him his entire career. You can't give away the ball to the other team and give them extra possessions. So that's my biggest takeaway on the other side of the ball. And I think it's going to be a big McCaffrey game, getting out quick, trying like heck to run the football. And I think the Bengals know that. So being able to run the ball early when the other team's number one goal is to stop the run is going to be huge, because the Vikings were able to do that last week.
With the offense, right? And last week we talked about Christian McCaffrey didn't average a ton of yards. I really think kind of go back the last 2 weeks, really. Not his best games on the ground. If he's not having a great game, is there any way that the 49ers can just throw the ball more? Right? Like, you have Brock Purdy. He was very efficient up until the concussions. I think he completed 9 out of 24 of his passes. Can you just like say, you know what? We're not really getting anything going on the ground. Hey, Brock, you actually throw well. You see the field very well. Maybe we don't have to rely on the run game to, win. Maybe we can rely on even short passes, slants, different things like that people might consider long handoffs, right? Get the ball out to Christian McCaffrey in space on passes. Like, can you maybe just throw more, if your running game is only giving you 3 yards a carry? Yeah,
and, Ayuk, make some plays. Kittle, make some plays. I kind of want to see more Ray, less Juwan Jennings if Debo's out, because, again, need some playmakers, need some guys to make some play after the catch, and a little bit more juice on offense. I like Jennings in his third receiver role. I didn't really like him seeing him in there a lot in the Debo role, because it's not explosive enough, and a terrible. If we're calling people out, like we were calling Steve Wilks, a terrible route by Juwan Jennings might have led to one of those interceptions from Brock Purdy too. So, and Bell too, right? Yeah, let's see some of the rookie Bell. Let's just the 49ers have to make some plays on offense, and if they're able to take McCaffrey out of it and stop the run, the passing game has to carry the offense. And it came up short last week. Someone's got to make some plays. They got to make plays at quarterback. Got to make plays at receiver. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate everybody out there. And we'll be back, of course, post-game, as we do every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Croc and I back Sunday night live right here, or Monday morning for your driving to work pleasure. And by the way, let us know if you see one of our billboards in the Bay Area. There's some billboards out there, Locked On 49ers style, kind of near the Bay Bridge area, Interstate 8580 junction. So let us know if you see one of those. Snap a pic too. Don't get in a crash though while you're doing it. All right. Talk to you post game right here. Locked On 49ers.